Most young men today believe that motivation is the key to success. They wait for the right mood, the right energy, the right moment when they feel ready to start working on their goals. They scroll through videos, listen to speeches, read quotes, and for a short period of time, they feel powerful, unstoppable, and inspired. But the problem begins the moment that feeling disappears. Because motivation is temporary, and when it fades, so does their effort. You've probably experienced this yourself. One day you wake up feeling determined. You promise yourself that this is the day everything changes. You plan your workout, your study schedule, your business ideas. For a few hours, you move with confidence. But then something small happens, you get tired, distracted, or bored, and suddenly that fire you felt is gone. The next day, you're back to your old habits, wondering why nothing in your life is improving. This is where discipline separates the winners from everyone else. Discipline is not based on emotions. It doesn't care whether you feel excited or exhausted. It doesn't ask for your permission, and it doesn't wait for perfect conditions. Discipline is the decision to act regardless of how you feel in the moment. It is the ability to follow through on your responsibilities, even when every part of you wants to quit. A disciplined man wakes up and executes his plan whether he slept well or not. He trains even when his body feels heavy. He studies even when his mind is restless. He works even when nobody is watching and nobody is praising him. While others are waiting to feel motivated, he is already building momentum through consistent action. The dangerous thing about motivation is that it tricks you into believing you are making progress just because you feel inspired. You watch a powerful video, your heart starts racing, and you imagine a better future for yourself. In that moment, you feel productive, even though you haven't actually done anything. This illusion keeps millions of young men stuck in a cycle where they consume inspiration instead of creating results. Discipline, on the other hand, is quiet and often uncomfortable. It doesn't give you an instant emotional high. It demands repetition, patience, and sacrifice. It asks you to do the boring tasks again and again until they become part of who you are. And this is exactly why most people avoid it. They would rather chase the excitement of motivation than endure the discomfort of discipline. Think about the men you respect the most: athletes, entrepreneurs, leaders. Their success is not built on random bursts of energy. It is built on years of showing up when it was inconvenient, painful, and lonely. They didn't wait to feel ready. They created their own readiness through action. Every early morning, every missed party, every hour spent practicing while others were relaxing added another layer to their strength. When you rely on motivation, your life becomes unpredictable because your effort depends on your emotions. Some weeks you work hard and other weeks you do nothing. Your progress becomes inconsistent, and inconsistency is the enemy of growth. But when you rely on discipline, your actions become stable. You create routines, habits, and systems that carry you forward even on your worst days. There will be days when you wake up with zero energy, when your mind tells you to stay in bed, when your friends are out enjoying themselves while you're stuck working on something that won't pay off immediately. In those moments, motivation will be nowhere to be found. The only thing that will keep you moving is discipline, the promise you made to yourself that you would not break your own standards just because it feels hard today. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you strengthen your character. You prove to yourself that you are someone who can be trusted, someone who can endure discomfort for the sake of a better future. Over time, this self-trust becomes one of the most powerful advantages you can have, because once you know that you will act no matter what, fear and doubt lose their control over you. Most young men never reach their potential not because they lack talent, intelligence, or opportunity, but because they build their lives on a foundation of temporary emotions instead of permanent habits. They wait to feel ready instead of training themselves to act regardless of their feelings. And while they are waiting, disciplined men are quietly outworking them every single day. Most young men are obsessed with big moments. They dream about sudden breakthroughs, overnight success, and dramatic transformations that change everything at once. They imagine one perfect day where they wake up early, work harder than ever before, hit the gym, study for hours, and somehow believe that this single burst of effort will rewrite their entire future. But real success does not come from intense moments of action. It comes from quiet, Repeated effort that most people consider too boring to maintain consistency is what turns average effort into extraordinary results. It is not about how hard you work for one day or even 1 week. It is about whether you can keep working when the excitement disappears, when nobody is praising you, and when your progress feels painfully slow. The truth is, almost anyone can push themselves for a short period of time. Many young men have had days where they felt unstoppable and productive. But very few have the patience and discipline to repeat that effort every single day for months or years. The real advantage in life does not belong to the most talented or the most intelligent. It belongs to the person who refuses to stop. When you show up consistently, you begin to build something powerful that cannot be created in a single momentum. Momentum is what makes tasks easier over time. It is what allows your skills to compound, your confidence to grow, and your results to multiply even when your daily effort feels small. Think about going to the gym. The first few days are always the hardest. Your body is sore, your energy is low, and you don't see any visible change in the mirror. Many people quit during this phase because they expect immediate results. But the man who keeps showing up, even when he sees no progress, is the one who eventually develops strength, endurance, and a physique that others admire. Not because he trained harder than everyone else on a single day, but because he trained more days than everyone else combined. Consistency also builds trust, not only with others, but with yourself. Every time you follow through on your routine, you send a message to your own mind that you are reliable. You become someone who does what he says he will do. This self-trust becomes a foundation for confidence, because deep down you know you are capable of long-term commitment. Most young men struggle with confidence not because they lack ability, but because their own history is full of broken promises and unfinished plans. Another reason consistency is so powerful is because it eliminates the need for constant decision-making. When you rely on random bursts of motivation, you have to negotiate with yourself every day. You wake up and ask, should I work today or rest? Should I train today or skip it? This constant internal debate drains your mental energy. But when you build consistent habits, your actions become automatic. You don't waste time deciding whether to act. You simply act because it is part of your routine, while others are searching for shortcuts, waiting for perfect opportunities, or jumping from one idea to another. The consistent man is quietly building an unshakable advantage. Day by day, he is gaining experience, refining his skills, and moving forward while everyone else is stuck in cycles of starting and stopping. Over time, this gap becomes massive. What looked like small, ordinary effort in the beginning turns into extraordinary results that seem impossible to outsiders. Many people underestimate the power of small daily improvements because they are not exciting. Posting about your goals online feels exciting. Making big promises to your friends feels exciting. Planning a new life on paper feels exciting. But sitting down every day to do the same difficult work without applause is not exciting at all. It is repetitive, sometimes lonely, and often unnoticed. Yet this is exactly the process that produces real, lasting success. Consistency also protects you from emotional instability. Life is unpredictable. Some days you will feel confident and energetic, while other days you will feel stressed, distracted, or discouraged. If your effort depends on your mood, your progress will always be unstable. But when you commit to consistent action, you create a stable path forward regardless of what is happening around you. You stop being controlled by temporary emotions and start being guided by long-term purpose. In the end, the men who rise above the rest are rarely the ones who had the biggest ideas or the loudest ambitions. They are the ones who kept moving forward when progress was invisible, who kept working when results were slow, and who kept showing up long after others had lost interest. Their advantage was never sudden or dramatic. It was built quietly through thousands of small actions repeated day after day, until those actions shaped their identity and defined their future. Look at the world young men are growing up in today. At any moment, with just a single swipe or tap, you can access endless entertainment, endless conversations, endless content designed to keep you watching, scrolling, and consuming. You don't even have to leave your bed to be distracted for hours. Everything is designed to be easy, fast, and instantly satisfying. And because of this, the ability to stay focused has become one of the rarest and most valuable traits a man can develop. Most young men don't fail because they lack intelligence or opportunity. They fail because their attention is constantly being pulled in 1,000 different directions. They start working on something important, and within minutes they check their phone. They sit down to study, but a notification pops up, and suddenly they're watching videos that have nothing to do with their goals. They tell themselves it will only be for a few minutes, but those minutes turn into hours, and by the end of the day, they've done nothing meaningful. Distractions feel harmless in the moment. Watching one more video, replying to one more message, scrolling for just a little longer doesn't seem like a big deal. But what most people don't realize is that distraction doesn't destroy your life in one dramatic event. It destroys it slowly, quietly, by stealing small pieces of your time every single day. And those small pieces add up. An hour wasted today becomes hundreds of hours wasted in a year. And those lost hours are opportunities you never get back. The modern world rewards distraction because distracted people are easier to control and easier to sell to. When your mind is constantly entertained, you stop thinking deeply. You stop planning long-term. You stop asking yourself difficult questions about your future. You become comfortable in a cycle of short-term pleasure and long-term stagnation. Meanwhile, the small percentage of men who learn to ignore these distractions are using that same time to build skills, start businesses, train their bodies, and create real value. Avoiding distractions is not just about productivity. It is about protecting your focus, because focus is what allows you to produce high-quality work. When you constantly switch between tasks, your brain never reaches a deep level of concentration. You end up doing many things poorly instead of doing one thing well. But when you remove distractions and give your full attention to a single task, you begin to work faster, think more clearly, and produce better results in less time. There is also a psychological cost to constant distraction. Every time you interrupt your work to check your phone or open another app, you train your brain to crave stimulation. Your attention span becomes shorter, and tasks that require patience and effort start to feel unbearable. This is why many young men say they can't focus anymore. It is not because they are incapable of focus. It is because they have trained themselves to expect constant entertainment. And anything slower than that feels uncomfortable. A man who can sit in a quiet room and work on one difficult task for hours without reaching for his phone is becoming increasingly rare. And rarity creates value. In a world where most people are distracted, the man who can maintain focus automatically stands out. He learns faster, produces more, and progresses further simply because he is not constantly resetting his attention every few minutes. Avoiding distractions also means making difficult choices about how you spend your time and who you allow to influence your mind. It means saying no to things that are fun in the short term, but damaging in the long term. It means sometimes choosing to be alone with your work instead of constantly seeking entertainment or social approval. This can feel uncomfortable at first because you are going against the habits that everyone around you is following. But over time, this ability to stay focused becomes one of your greatest strengths. Many young men complain that they don't have enough time to work on their goals. But if you look closely at their daily routines, you'll often find hours lost to mindless scrolling, random videos, and pointless online arguments. The time is there. It is simply being consumed by distractions that offer nothing in return. The moment you start protecting your time and treating your attention as something valuable, your productivity and clarity begin to change almost immediately. Avoiding distractions is not about living a boring or isolated life. It is about understanding that your time and focus are limited resources, and once they are spent, you cannot recover them. The men who achieve extraordinary things are not always the smartest or the most talented. They are often the ones who simply refuse to let the world steal their attention, who protected their focus as if it were their most valuable asset, and who used that focus to build a life that distracted men only talk about while scrolling through their phones. One of the biggest mistakes young men make is believing that saying the right things is enough to earn respect. They talk about their goals, they talk about their plans, they talk about the person they are going to become. In conversations with friends, online posts, and even in their own thoughts, they describe a future version of themselves that is strong, successful, disciplined, and admired. But when it comes to daily actions, their behavior does not match their words. Over time, this gap between what they say and what they do becomes the reason people stop taking them seriously. Respect is not given because of your intentions. It is not given because you have big dreams or because you can explain your plans in a confident voice. Respect is a reaction to consistent, visible action. People watch what you do far more than they listen to what you say. They notice whether you show up on time, whether you keep your promises, whether you finish what you start, and whether you continue working when things become difficult. These small, repeated actions communicate more about your character than any speech you could ever give. Many young men think that if they just talk about their ambitions enough, others will see them as ambitious. They announce that they are starting a business, that they are going to get in shape, that they are about to change their life completely. In the beginning, people may encourage them, may even admire their confidence. But when weeks and months pass and nothing actually changes, that admiration turns into doubt. Eventually, their words lose all weight because people have learned that those words are not followed by action. This does not only affect how others see you, it also affects how you see yourself. Every time you make a promise and fail to keep it, you send a signal to your own mind that your words are meaningless. You begin to lose trust in yourself. You start to hesitate before making commitments because deep down you are unsure whether you will follow through. This internal loss of respect is often more damaging than the loss of respect from others because it weakens your confidence and your sense of identity. A respected man is not necessarily the loudest person in the room. He does not need to constantly remind others of his goals or achievements. His actions speak for him. When he says he will do something, people believe him because they have seen his consistency in the past. When he commits to a responsibility, others feel secure knowing that he will handle it properly. This kind of reputation is built slowly through dozens and hundreds of small moments where he chose to act with integrity even when it would have been easier to take shortcuts. There is also a difference between seeking attention and earning respect. Attention can be gained quickly by making bold statements, by showing off, or by creating a loud image of confidence. But attention is temporary. It fades as soon as someone more entertaining appears. Respect, on the other hand, is quiet and long-lasting. It is built when people observe your behavior over time and realize that you are dependable, disciplined, and serious about your responsibilities. In today's world, social media has made it easier than ever to create the illusion of progress. Young men can post motivational quotes, gym selfies, or screenshots of business ideas, giving the impression that they are constantly improving. But those who see them in real life can tell whether those posts reflect reality or are just a performance. Eventually, the truth always becomes visible. The body shows whether you actually trained. The bank account shows whether you actually built something valuable. Your lifestyle shows whether you truly followed through on your ambitions. Respect also grows when you are willing to do difficult or uncomfortable things without complaining. When others see you waking up early, staying late, or taking responsibility in situations where most people would avoid it, they begin to view you differently. They recognize that you are not driven by convenience or laziness, but by a strong sense of duty and self-control. This kind of behavior signals maturity, reliability, and strength of character, all of which naturally attract respect. Another important part of earning respect through actions is consistency in your behavior, even when no one is watching. It is easy to act disciplined and hardworking when there is an audience. It is much harder to maintain those standards in private when you could easily relax or make excuses and nobody would know. But the habits you build in private eventually shape your public results. People may not see the hours you spent working alone, but they will see the outcome of those hours in your skills, your achievements, and your confidence. Young men who truly want to be respected must understand that respect cannot be demanded, argued for, or forced. It is the natural consequence of living in a way that proves your reliability over time. It grows when your words and your actions align so closely that people no longer question your sincerity, when your promises become something others can rely on, and when your behavior demonstrates that you are not just talking about becoming a better man, but are actively proving it through what you do every single day. There is a rule so simple that most people overlook it, yet so powerful that it can completely transform a man's life if followed without exception. That rule is this: Do what you said you would do. It sounds obvious, almost too basic to be life-changing, but when you truly examine how most young men live, you begin to realize how rarely this rule is actually followed every day. Young men make promises to themselves. They promise they will wake up early tomorrow. They promise they will start exercising next week. They promise they will stop wasting time and begin working seriously on their future. In those moments, they genuinely believe what they are saying. They feel sincere, motivated, and convinced that this time will be different. But when the moment of action arrives, their behavior changes. The alarm rings and they hit snooze. The gym feels too far away. The work feels too difficult. And once again, the promise is broken. What many people fail to understand is that every time you break your word to yourself, you weaken your own identity. Your mind starts to treat your promises as suggestions rather than commands. You begin to lose the ability to trust your own decisions because your past has shown you that your words are not always followed by action. This creates a cycle where you make bigger promises in an attempt to feel motivated again, only to break them later and damage your self-confidence even more. When a man decides that his word is unbreakable, everything about his mindset begins to change. Instead of asking himself whether he feels like doing something, he asks a different question: did I say I would do it? If the answer is yes, then the decision is already made. There is no internal debate, no negotiation, and no emotional argument. The task gets done simply because it was declared in advance. This removes a huge amount of mental friction because you are no longer wasting energy convincing yourself to act each day. Following through on your own word also builds a powerful sense of personal pride. You begin to see yourself as someone who is dependable, someone who can be trusted not only by others, but by his own conscience. This pride is different from ego or arrogance. It is quiet and internal, rooted in the knowledge that you have control over your actions. Even when life becomes difficult, you carry a sense of stability because you know that your behavior is guided by clear rules rather than shifting emotions. This rule may seem small, but its impact spreads into every area of life. If you consistently do what you said you would do, your habits become stronger, your discipline becomes automatic, and your progress becomes predictable. You no longer rely on bursts of motivation or external pressure to move forward. Your own commitments become enough to drive you because you have trained yourself to treat them as non-negotiable. There will be moments when following this rule feels uncomfortable or even painful. You might be tired after a long day and still have tasks left to complete. You might feel tempted to relax while others are enjoying themselves. In those moments, the easiest choice is to delay your responsibilities and tell yourself you will handle them later. But every time you choose comfort over your word, you teach yourself that your commitments are flexible. The short-term relief you gain is paid for by long-term weakness in your character. On the other hand, every time you keep your word despite discomfort, you strengthen your mental resilience. You prove to yourself that you are capable of acting against your immediate desires in order to protect your long-term goals. Over time, this ability becomes one of your greatest advantages because many people around you will continue to act based on how they feel in the moment while you act based on what you decided in advance. This simple rule also changes how others perceive you. When you become known as someone who always follows through, people start to rely on you. Opportunities begin to appear, not because you demanded them, but because reliability is rare and valuable. Whether in friendships, work, or business, people naturally gravitate toward individuals whose words carry weight because it reduces uncertainty and builds trust in every interaction. Living by the rule of doing what you said you would do forces you to become more careful with your promises. You stop making unrealistic commitments just to impress others or to feel temporarily motivated. Instead, you begin to think before you speak and before you plan. You only commit to what you are truly prepared to execute, and once you commit, you treat that decision as final. This leads to a more disciplined, honest, and focused way of living, where your plans are grounded in reality and your actions consistently align with your intentions. At the end of the day, the difference between the men who succeed and the men who remain stuck is not hidden in secret knowledge, luck, or extraordinary talent. It comes down to a handful of simple principles that most people hear, but very few choose to live by. Discipline over motivation, consistency over intensity, focus over distraction, Actions over words, and above all, the decision to keep your own promises no matter how you feel in the moment. Every young man starts with dreams. Everyone imagines a better life, more freedom, more respect, more control over their future. But dreams alone change nothing. What transforms a life is the daily choice to act in alignment with those dreams, even when it is boring, uncomfortable, or invisible to others. The men who rise above the rest are not always the loudest, the smartest, or the most naturally gifted. They are the ones who quietly build strength through repetition, who protect their time and attention, and who treat their word as something that cannot be broken. There will always be distractions trying to pull you away from your goals. There will always be moments when motivation fades and excuses feel reasonable. There will always be people who talk more than they act and promise more than they deliver. The real test of character is whether you choose to follow the same path or decide that your life will be guided by stronger standards. If you take these principles seriously and apply them consistently, you begin to separate yourself from the crowd without needing to announce it. Your habits start to shape your identity shapes your reputation, and your reputation opens doors that once seemed out of reach. Over time, the gap between you and those who ignored these rules becomes impossible to ignore, not because you were chasing attention, but because your results started to speak for you. Most young men will hear these ideas, agree with them, and then return to their old routines as soon as the speech ends. A smaller number will reflect on their habits, recognize where they have been undisciplined, distracted, or inconsistent, and make small but real changes. And a very small percentage will decide from this moment forward that their standards are no longer negotiable, that their time will be protected, and that their actions will always match their words.